Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on Our News. Could the Bahamas soon be swept in a third wave of COVID-19? A mother mourns the violent loss of her young son. Plus, the National Security Minister responds to questions about possible gang-related killings. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Jillian Gray. Topping news tonight following a violent start to 2021, Minister of National Security Marvin Dames says there is reason to believe that the recent spike in murders could be gang-related. Giorgio Bain reports.
Commenting on the recent spike in murders, Minister of National Security Marvin Dames believes that the incidents could be gang-related.
I think that there's some truth to it. I mean, listen. This is something that we've been contending with for a bit. You know, we have a problem with young men who have associated themselves with gangs. The police are fully aware, and who are hell bent on creating problems. And but I have every confidence that the police will deal with it.
A 20-year-old man was shot and killed on Lincoln Boulevard Tuesday night. It was the 11th murder in a one-week period. 2 young women were among those murder victims. Dames says some of the recent murders have been linked to domestic violence, a trend that officers are hoping to bring to a swift end.
Those matters over the last few days too, you had quite a number of them that were domestic related. And so we know that we have to work in that area. Just this morning I had a meeting with new executive board of the National Neighborhood Watch Council, and that will be one of the focus of their upcoming platform.
Dames added that while murders are down 21%, officers still have a long way to go in curbing violent crimes.
You're going to see from time to time periods where you have incidents of crime, where you may have a spate, you may have a day you have a murder, tomorrow you may have another murder. The police are learning from those experiences in terms of, you know, how do you adjust your enforcement strategies, how do you improve your strategies. It's a very dynamic business.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
The tearful mother of a 20-year-old man who was killed in Montel Heights on Tuesday shared the heartbreaking moment she learned her child had been shot. She described her son as a hard worker and a mannerly young man. Jared Higgs reports.
I called his phone and it went straight to voicemail.
The man who was killed in Montel Heights on Tuesday night is 20-year-old Carlisle Johnson, according to his mother, Donna Miller.
I don't know. I just started screaming.
According to police, Johnson was among a group of men in a yard on Lincoln Boulevard South when a gunman opened fire, hitting and killing him. Miller, a businesswoman who owns a popular hot dog stand, says she went to the scene, but her son's body was already gone. She thinks he was an innocent bystander, describing him as a mannerly and ambitious young man.
Lovely boy. Lovely. He was happy-go-lucky. Always made you laugh, silly. You know, he was hands-on. He was studying to be a marine mechanic, and he was taking courses to become a captain. And now, nothing.
Johnson attended Kingsway Academy and graduated in 2018. When he was done with school, his mother says he was trying to find his path. When being a regular mechanic didn't suit him, she found him another job.
Billy at SOS gave him a job as a marine helper, and he trained him. And then he offered him to do online classes to become certified in Mercury. So he was doing that, and then he was taking a course to become a captain at the same time, because, you know, they go hand in hand. So he was definitely an outdoor kind of guy.
Miller says her daughter is taking his loss hard as well. Family and friends are holding a candlelight vigil in his honor.
When you have kids, you accept them for who they are, and you just show them lots of love. Because when they're gone, they're gone. You know, coming back.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
With COVID-19 cases skyrocketing in the United States and other parts of the world, former Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands is warning that a third wave of the deadly virus is inevitable. Berthany McDermott reports.
While the country has recorded fewer cases of COVID-19 in recent weeks, former Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands is warning that a third wave of COVID-19 is unavoidable. Sands said as long as we continue to interact with persons from countries like the United States, which has seen record hospitalizations, case numbers will surge.
If the Bahamas, which has had a relative milder surge, is going to survive, we've got to understand that it's just a matter of time before our caseloads increase or we import one of the variant COVID species into the Bahamas.
Sands, who resigned as health minister back in May, also suggested that the country's current testing protocols are insufficient. Travelers seeking to enter the Bahamas must obtain a negative COVID-19 RT-PCR test result within 5 days of travel and must take a rapid antigen test on day 5 if they stay beyond 4 days. According to Sands, the testing policy needs to be stepped up.
Until we start making 100% certain that anybody who tests positive with an antigen test then gets an RT-PCR. That is not happening right now.
But what about the healthcare system, which was stretched to the limit during the second wave of the deadly virus?
We continue to have the migration of critical care nurses and other nurses from the Bahamas, particularly during COVID now, where the demand for that expertise has catapulted, has exploded.
And even with vaccines being rolled out, Sands says the reality is the virus will be around for another 12 months at least.
Even though vaccines are considered to be the savior, they are not going to impact what happens on the ground for at least the next 12 months. Because it's going to take that long, even if people agree to accept vaccination.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
And a third wave of the coronavirus could impact the Bahamas within the next 2 weeks, according to co-chair of the PLP task force, Dr. Melissa Evans. She added there is a strong possibility that the new and more infectious strain of the virus is in the country.
When it's going to hit, we have no idea, but it's probability factor that it's going to be plausibly, if we test, within the next 2 weeks or so.
Dr. Evans said healthcare workers as well as frontline workers should be more vigilant and not let their guard down. She is also pushing for more testing for visitors, as she says it's possible tourists could have visited and be positive.
Even though they had PCR testing prior to coming in, we still have a window that they would have had prior to landing in the Bahamas. So probability factor would show that yes, they probably, if they did come, then they would have come in, and yes. And they would have been in our environment. They would have gone to restaurants.
At this point, any new case of the coronavirus that has a history of travel should be genetically profiled to see if it is the new strain of COVID-19, according to Dr. Linwood Brown, who said it is important that the new strain is caught soon.
There can be the B17 here locally, and a lot of persons walking around asymptomatic with it, which poses a greater risk because the people are not getting sicker per se, but they're getting sick faster.
He added that the travel protocol of testing 5 days after a visitor arrives is too late and could cause infected people to slip through the cracks and spread the virus among Bahamians. He suggested testing 3 days after entry and using the rapid antigen test before arrival.
And that should have been a criteria to check in, a rapid antigen test at the check-in counter in the country they're coming from. Because the issue will be when we do it here and we pick up a positive, now we are laden with the responsibility of caring for that person.
As a third wave of the pandemic is imminent, Dr. Michael Darville said the Ministry of Health should be preparing now, and that means increasing bed capacity.
We have been calling on the government to move and move rapidly to ensure that, God forbid, that the third wave do come in, that we will be better prepared.
Time now for our first weather check with meteorologist Greg Thompson. Good night, Greg.
Temperatures take a dip into the mid-50s overnight. They got down to 55 here in the capital. We will probably not see that this evening, but right now outside our studios, we are in the mid-70s. 74 degrees is our current temperature with just a few clouds outside. The winds are still light out of the southeast, bringing in that warm temperature across our area. Satellite view, high pressure remains in charge. That high is going to actually slide out towards the east. High-level clouds associated with a system that's moving towards the area. That should get in here sometime tomorrow. So look for some warm temperatures tonight. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, what pushed a group of Rastafarians to file a constitutional motion, plus why nearly half of Arawaki stalls remain closed. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
A constitutional motion has been filed in the Supreme Court on behalf of the Rastafarian community, which feels its members' rights to use marijuana for religious purposes is being infringed upon. Kyle Joaquin has the details.
I want to tell them, back off us right now, man. We sick and tired, man. Give us our fundamental rights and our freedom in this last judgment.
Priest Rithman McKinney says after watching law enforcement kick down the doors of Rastafarians in his community and arrest them for possession of marijuana, they've had enough.
You get about 4 or 5 priests down for the last couple of months being harassed by the officers. They're kicking down the Rastaman door continually. And they know that there's something that's coming, there's something going. This have to be resolved, and they infringe our rights, our constitutional rights.
After a Rastafarian was charged in the magistrate's court this week, attorney Bjorn Ferguson filed a constitutional motion in the Supreme Court on Wednesday, stating that the Rasta's right to use cannabis as a religious sacrament is being infringed upon. Attorney General Carl Bethel is named as the respondent.
The challenge is actually against the Dangerous Drugs Act that absolutely prohibits the possession of dangerous drugs. And the complaint is it is unconstitutional.
We have members who've been charged before the courts, criminal records, can't travel. We have members who have children abroad. They can't even travel to see their families abroad.
The members of the religious group say what makes matters worse is that they're still harassed by law enforcement, even after Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced that beginning this year, the records of those charged with small amounts of marijuana would be expunged. However, Minnis did not give a date in 2021. In addition, the Economic Recovery Committee has recommended the full legalization of marijuana for medicinal, religious, and recreational purposes, coupled with an appropriate regime that oversees production, sales, and export.
Rastafari has been on the forefront from inception, speaking on this, that the herbs is the healing of the nation. Where there's a dish of green herb, there's peace and love.
This is supposed to be a nation built upon Christian principles, so they're supposed to know right from wrong, they're supposed to know. So they so-called the word of God.
My personal opinion is a bunch of bottom, because if we stand different from the people who y'all are considered as criminals out there, we shouldn't be oppressed or treated the same way. You understand? It's a right for everything.
The community tonight celebrates Black Christ Mass, where members recognize the birth of Christ. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
During what was arguably one of the darkest days in the United States, Charlisa Gibson, a Bahamian physician in Washington, D.C., described Wednesday's deadly Capitol riot as terrible. Gibson, who is a pulmonary and critical care physician, said while Donald Trump supporters were storming the Capitol building, she was treating patients.
Well, I was actually at work, and it was funny because I was dealing with a critical patient for maybe like an hour in the room. And then I looked at my phone and I saw 20 text messages. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And then that's when I realized what was happening in the city. And it's terrible.
At least 4 people died after a pro-Trump mob swarmed the Capitol following the violent riot, which prompted Bahamian officials to issue a warning to Bahamians in the D.C. area to stay away. Congress affirmed President-elect Joe Biden's 2020 election victory. 10 months after COVID-19 restrictions forced businesses on Arawaki to shut down, nearly half of those stalls remain closed, according to President of the Vendors Association, Rodney Russell, who says he fears Arawaki will be wiped out if the Bahamas experiences a third wave that prompts another shutdown. Jasmine Brown reports.
President of the association says while things are picking up here, that doesn't mean they've gotten better, as he revealed nearly half of the stalls still remain closed. President of the Arawak Key Conch Fish Food Vendors Association and owner of Red Snapper, Rodney Russell, says of the 32 stalls on Arawak Key, 13 did not reopen despite being given the all clear in early November.
In the first opening, we had business owners who have spent a large sums of money buying stock and preparing their businesses, only to learn in about 3 weeks they were closed down again for a long period of time. Their stock and their investment had to be cancelled in some form or way, and now they are very skeptical whether or not they should open their business because they do not know if we will have another closure or if they're going to have another outburst. During a national address on November 8th, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced spots such as Arawak Key and Potter's Key could resume outdoor dining after COVID-19 infection rates on New Providence decreased. The vendors were initially allowed to reopen in June but shut down a few weeks later as the Bahamas experienced the second wave. However, Russell says with Arawak Key vendors still reeling from being closed for months, they will not survive a third wave if that happens.
If there is like a third wave, like some people are saying is going to happen here, could Arawak Key vendors take another shutdown?
No, we're gone forever. We're gone forever. We are gone forever. Just remember, we have taken 1 year blow, and another blow now will probably bring us to our knees. And I don't know if majority of these vendors have the strength to get up.
As for how business is going now, Russell says it was still quiet at the fish fry because high unemployment and reduced income prompted by the pandemic have left Bahamians with little money to spend.
Most of our customers do not have the funds anymore, and those who have the fund are staying at home because they cannot afford to come out. So the little fund that some of the business do have, they're holding and waiting. And we cannot blame them for that. Okay? So we would hope that in the future we would be able to handle this pandemic better.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Minister of National Security Marvin Dames addressing rumors over the transfer of former Parliamentary Commissioner Philip Turner to the Ministry of Youth to serve as an undersecretary. According to Dames, it's just a part of the business.
People get transferred every day, right? That's not on my radar, right? Now, if you're suggesting that something is out of whack there, then let me hear it. But transfers, it's all a part of the business.
Dames refused to comment further, saying it would be improper. As for when another parliamentary commissioner will be named, he said when one is identified. There's more news on the way, but first, your RF Market Watch.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Still to come, a bee farm needs help keeping his business abuzz. Plus, 2 Bahamian ballers hit the hardwood. That's coming up when our news returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
You're watching our news. Welcome back. Things aren't so sweet at a local bee farm. The owner now pleading for help as he watches hundreds of his bees die daily. Kyle Joaquin reports.
All of those are dead, so pretty much everything there dead in here. And if you could see down there, the ground is covered down there.
It's a situation that stings for this bee farmer. Charles Burrows has been farming bees for nearly a decade, but woke up on Christmas Eve to find hundreds of them dead.
I saw these dead bees fluttering over the ground, and as I observed more of the hives, I see there were a lot of bees in front of the hive on the ground dead, and so I walked through the whole area and noticed it pretty much with all through the apiary. Bees all over the ground dead here. Oh my God. This is very disappointing for Christmas morning.
Throughout this bee farm, there are around 80 boxes used as hives, each holding hundreds of bees. But over the past 2 weeks, Burrows says over 70 of those hives have been impacted. On the ground, another sight to see. What you think are leaves are really dead bees.
This is actually the honeycomb, and this is actually the brood. You see those little dark spots? That's the young bees that haven't been born. So all them died out. Everything died out. This is my livelihood. This is all I do for a living. So this is my livelihood down the drain.
Burrows said after smelling what he believes is pesticide, he's tried everything, including reaching out to the environment minister, but has gotten no help. He's now making one final plea for answers or some sort of assistance.
This box is one of my 8-frame hives, and actually, as you can see there, everything in there is dead. I just don't know.
We've reached out to the Ministry of Environment for comment, but got no response. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Tonight in sports, the country's 2 NBA stars in action last night as their teams picked up victories. Marcellus Hall has the highlights.
Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Here's what's going on for you. If you're a Hoops fan, there was lots of it to get to last night as both of our NBA players were in action, both coming up with victories. Let's take a look. Buddy Hield and the Sacramento Kings taking the floor last night. They squared off against the Chicago Bulls. Rough night shooting for Hield. He missed 12 of his first 14 shots in the ballgame. The Grand Bahama native would make an impact when it mattered the most, however, converting on a 4-point play with 38 seconds remaining. That gave the Kings a 124-119 lead. They would eventually get the win, 128-124. Buddy would finish with 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. Kings will play the Raptors on Friday. DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns also in action last night. They took on the aforementioned Raptors. Ayton with a double-double, scoring 11 points to go along with 16 rebounds. Suns get the victory here, 123-115. They improved to 6-2 on the season, second place in the West, with their next game on Friday when they take on the Detroit Pistons. Meanwhile, from the collegiate ranks, Kai Jones and his Texas Longhorns continue their stellar play. 4th-ranked Longhorns improving to 9-1 this season. They held off Iowa State 78-72 earlier this week. Jones logging 28 minutes on the floor, finished with 7 points, 9 rebounds, and 1 assist. Longhorns' next game will be on Saturday versus the 14th-ranked West Virginia squad. And that's your look at sports here on this Thursday. We'll see you guys again right here, same time, same place tomorrow night. Till then, I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Still to come, meteorologist Greg Thompson is back in studio. Plus, a Grand Bahama business overcomes the odds. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back. Our warm days ahead for the holiday weekend. Greg Thompson has the answer in tonight's extended forecast.
Satellite view around the area. We do have that high pressure still in charge of our weather. That's basically providing some nice warm temperatures today. But we are watching a storm system in the central portions of the United States within the frontal boundary attached. That front should get near sometime tomorrow, bringing us some isolated showers, possibly an isolated thunderstorm. But behind that, once again, we will experience a cool down for the weekend. Your boating forecast for the Northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. The winds will start off southeast to south, 10 to 15 knots, but tomorrow they swing out to south to southwest with a caution flag. Seas 4 to 6 feet over the ocean, while in the central and southeast Bahamas, southeast to south flow 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Low tide will be at 8:34 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Tuesday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a great night, everyone.
And finally, in news tonight, after being thrown off course by Hurricane Dorian and the COVID-19 pandemic, one business on Grand Bahama has finally opened its doors after 3 years of roadblocks.
When Seaport Secrets Cafe and Seafood set out to launch their business several years ago, they did not imagine that they'd have to face 2 storms back to back.
And the construction commenced in 2018. And then, of course, we know what happened in 2019. We had Hurricane Dorian, which actually slowed things down.
After braving Dorian, the store owners sought to help residents by bringing in several plane loads of supplies and offering 500 meals per day to those in need. Local artists have found a space at the eatery, providing murals and artwork for the decor. Marketing manager David Mackey said it's all a part of the company's plan to help residents, which also includes support for local fishermen.
It's an avenue for local fishermen to sell their fish because we want to be able to support the local market, the needs of the market, as well as those who have needs to sell what they have and those who want to come in and purchase.
Queens Highway, where the cafe is located, was flooded by Dorian. Customers who welcomed the new store as a breath of fresh air said the grand opening showed that Grand Bahama is beginning to rise out of the ashes.
It's a long haul, the recovery from Dorian, and I was here for it. And still waiting for that airport. In terms of Dorian, I think we're doing pretty well.
Things have been kind of on a downward spiral here. So anything and everything that brings in a new idea, that brings also quality and a certain level of excellence with it.
Thank you for joining us for our news. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Jillian Gray. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.